reason most people fail is not because they do not know what to do, but because they cannot stop talking about what they know. Knowledge without application is just entertainment. Information without implementation is just distraction. Wisdom without work is just wishful thinking. You have attended enough conferences, read enough books, and heard enough speeches to transform your life 10 times over. But instead of applying what you have learned, you've become addicted to learning more. You've become a collector of strategies instead of an implementer of solutions. The difference between you and someone living your dream life is not what they know that you do not know. It is what they do that you do not do. There was a man named Robert who worked construction in downtown Chicago every morning at 5:30 while the city slept. He would arrive at the construction site of what would become the tallest building in the entire metropolitan area. No fanfare, no announcements, no social media posts about his early arrival, just Robert, his hard hat, and his lunch pail. Meanwhile, across town, the coffee shops buzzed with conversations about architecture. Young professionals gathered in circles discussing blueprints they had never drawn, debating construction techniques they had never practiced, and critiquing buildings they had never built. They spoke eloquently about structural engineering, about the future of urban development, about revolutionary construction methods that would change everything. Robert never joined these conversations. While they talked, he worked. Beam by beam, floor by floor, day after day. 18 months later, that building stood complete. 47 stories of steel and glass reaching toward the sky. And you know what? Not one person in those coffee shop discussions had contributed a single bolt, a single beam, or a single hour of labor to its construction. But Robert, his hands had touched every floor. His sweat had mixed with the concrete. His commitment had been measured not in words, but in work. This is the fundamental difference between those who achieve and those who simply aspire. Real achievers understand something that talkers never grasp. Your potential is not measured by what you can discuss, but by what you can deliver, you see. We live in a world that has confused motion with movement. Motion is busy work. Motion is talking about what you are going to do. Motion is planning to plan. Motion is announcing your intentions to anyone who will listen. But movement is different. Movement is progress. Movement is measurable advancement toward a definite goal. Most people are trapped in perpetual motion. They attend seminars about success but never apply the principles. They read books about wealth but never invest a dollar. They talk about starting businesses but never register a company name. They discuss fitness goals but never break a sweat. They live in the realm of intention without ever entering the territory of implementation. But there is a special breed of people who understand the power of silent work. These are the individuals who have learned that announcement is the enemy of accomplishment. They know that every moment spent explaining what they are going to do is a moment stolen from actually doing it. Think about the greatest achievers in history. Did Thomas Edison hold press conferences about his experiments before he invented the light bulb? Did the Wright brothers write newspaper articles about their plans before they flew? Did Henry Ford give speeches about his assembly line concept before he built it? No, they worked in silence. They let their results do the talking. The truth is, talking about your goals actually reduces your likelihood of achieving them. When you announce your intentions, your brain experiences what psychologists call a social reality. It feels as though you have already accomplished something simply because you have talked about it. The satisfaction you get from the announcement replaces the motivation you need for the actual work. But the real ones know this secret. They understand that loose lips sink ships. and loose talk sinks dreams. They have learned to keep their mouths shut and their hands busy. They have discovered that the energy most people waste on explanation, they can channel into execution. This does not mean they are antisocial or secretive. It means they are strategic. They understand that in a world full of talkers, workers stand out. In a marketplace of promises, delivery creates distinction. In an economy of ideas, implementation builds fortunes. The silent builders among us are not trying to impress anyone with their vocabulary. They are not concerned with sounding intelligent at networking events. They are not worried about getting credit for their knowledge. They are focused on one thing: results. And here's what happens when you commit to this principle. While others are debating the best route to take, you are already walking. While others are discussing the perfect timing, you are already building. While others are explaining why something might not work, you are testing to see if it does. The most successful people I have ever known share this common characteristic. They under-promise and over-deliver. They speak softly but carry big results. They let their work create the noise, not their words. You have been given the same 24 hours as everyone else. The same opportunities exist in your environment as exist in theirs. The same resources are available to you as are available to them. The only difference is what you choose to do with your time. Will you spend it talking about what you plan to do, or will you spend it actually doing it? A construction worker understood something profound. Buildings are not built with blueprints alone. They require concrete action, consistent effort, and silent determination. Robert did not need to announce his progress. The building itself was his announcement. Each completed floor was his status update. The finished structure was his press release. This is the way of the real ones. They do not talk about their work. Their work talks about them. Now let me tell you about Maria Gonzalez, a quiet woman who worked at the public library in a small town outside Detroit for 15 years. She had watched children come and go, many of them struggling to read, many more never picking up a book at all. The literacy rates in her community were among the lowest in the state. Politicians gave speeches about education reform. Community leaders held town halls about the reading crisis. Parents complained about the school system, but Maria did something different. She stopped talking and started working. Every evening after the library closed, she would stay behind, not to file books or organize shelves, but to design something revolutionary. She created simple reading programs that met children exactly where they were. She developed games that made phonics fun. She wrote stories using characters and situations that children could relate to. She recorded herself reading these stories so children could hear proper pronunciation and rhythm. Maria never announced her project. She never sent press releases to the local newspaper. She never posted about her progress on social media. She simply worked night after night, week after week, month after month. Then something beautiful happened. One child started reading better, then 2, then 5, then 20. These children began teaching their younger siblings. Parents noticed their kids actually wanting to read at home. Teachers saw dramatic improvements in classroom performance within 3 years. The literacy rates in that community had improved by 40%. The state education department took notice. Reporters came asking questions. They wanted to know about the miracle program that had transformed an entire community. And you know what they found? Not a committee, not a task force, not a government initiative. They found Maria. still working quietly in that library, still creating new materials, still helping children one at a time. This is what happens when you understand the power of silent work. Maria knew something that most people never learn. Lasting impact is created in private long before it is celebrated in public. See, most people have it backwards. They want the recognition before they have the results. They want the applause before they have the accomplishment. They want the credit before they have the contribution. But the real ones understand that recognition is not the goal. Results are the goal. Recognition is simply a byproduct of consistent, excellent work. The problem with seeking applause before accomplishment is that it changes your motivation. When you work for recognition, you start performing for people instead of performing for purpose. You begin to measure your success by the volume of praise rather than the value of progress. You become more concerned with looking good, but when you work in silence, something powerful happens. Your motivation becomes pure. You are no longer distracted by the opinions of observers. You are not tempted to take shortcuts for quick applause. You are not derailed by criticism from people who are not doing the work themselves. Maria understood this principle. She was not working for recognition from the community. She was working for the transformation of children. She was not seeking credit for her innovation. She was seeking change in her environment. The applause came later, but it was never the purpose. This is why recognition always follows results, never the reverse. Think about every major breakthrough in human history. The recognition came after the work was complete, after the impact was undeniable, after the results spoke for themselves. When you work for recognition, you become dependent on external validation. Your confidence rises and falls based on what other people think about your efforts. But when you work for results, you become internally driven. Your confidence is built on your own progress, your own growth, your own contribution to the world. Maria spent 3 years in obscurity. But those 3 years built something that will impact generations. The children she helped became teenagers who helped other children. The teenagers became adults who created their own programs. The ripple effect of her silent work continues to expand. This is the secret that separates achievers from announcers. Achievers understand that the work itself is the reward. The process of creation, of building, of contributing, of making a difference, this is where real satisfaction comes from. The recognition, when it comes, is just confirmation of what they already knew. They had made a meaningful contribution to the world. So while others were talking about the literacy crisis, Maria was solving it. While others were debating solutions, she was implementing them. While others were discussing the problem, she was becoming the answer. The real ones do not wait for permission to start working. They do not wait for perfect conditions to begin contributing. They do not wait for recognition to validate their efforts. They simply start where they are, with what they have, and they work until the work is done. There was a farmer named Samuel who owned land in the heart of Kansas. When the great drought of 2012 hit the region, it devastated crops across 3 states. Wells dried up, cattle died, families lost everything. The local news was filled with stories of despair. Town meetings became complaint sessions where farmers gathered to blame the weather, the government, the economy, anyone but themselves. But Samuel was different. While his neighbors sat in those meetings talking about their problems, he was in his fields working on solutions. Years before the drought, when the rains were plentiful and times were good. Samuel had been preparing, not talking about preparation, actually prepared. He had studied water conservation techniques. He had installed underground irrigation systems. He had planted drought-resistant crops alongside his regular harvest. He had built rainwater collection systems during the wet seasons. He had done all of this quietly, without fanfare, without announcing his plans to the farming community. When the drought hit, Samuel's land remained green, his crops survived, his cattle had water, his family not only survived, but prospered while others struggled. More importantly, he was able to share his excess with neighboring families, keeping the entire community from complete devastation. Now, Samuel could have spent those preparation years talking about drought management at farmers' meetings. He could have given speeches about water conservation. He could have written articles about sustainable farming. But instead, he chose to work. He chose to prepare. He chose to prepare. He chose to plant seeds during seasons when others were planting excuses. This is the farmer's philosophy. You plant today what you want to harvest tomorrow. But most people have lost touch with this simple truth. They want immediate results from minimal effort. They want harvest without planting. They want success without seasons of preparation. The farmer understands something profound about time that most people miss. Time is not just duration. Time is opportunity. Every day you have the chance to plant something valuable. Every week you can water something important. Every month you can tend to something that will eventually feed you. But here is what separates real farmers from fantasy farmers. Real farmers work through all seasons. They prepare in spring, tend in summer, harvest in fall, and plan during winter. Fantasy farmers only show up during harvest season and wonder why the fields are empty. Samuel's success during the drought was not luck. It was not chance. It was not even talent. It was the result of consistent work during seasons when work was not urgent. He understood that the time to dig a well is not when you are thirsty. The time to plant seeds is not when you are hungry. The time to prepare for challenges is not when challenges arise. While his neighbors were reacting to the drought, Samuel was already prepared for it. While they were complaining about conditions they could not control, he was benefiting from preparations he had made during conditions he could control. This is how consistent work compounds over time. Each day of effort builds upon the previous day. Each month of commitment strengthens the foundation. Each year of dedication creates exponential returns. The difference between planters and talkers is simple. Planters understand that success is grown, not given, it is cultivated. Not created overnight. It is the result of daily actions taken consistently over time, not dramatic gestures taken sporadically when convenient. Samuel never talked about his drought preparation because he was too busy preparing for the drought. He never announced his water conservation plans because he was too focused on conserving water. He never explained his farming strategy because he was too engaged in implementing his farming strategy. When the drought ended and the rains returned, reporters came to interview Samuel about his success. They wanted to know his secret. His answer was simple. While others were talking about the weather, he was preparing for it. The real ones do not predict the storm, they prepare for it. You know what I have observed throughout my years of studying human behavior? The most successful people in the world are rarely the ones standing on platforms giving speeches about success. They are the ones building foundations while others are waving flags. There's a fundamental difference between foundation builders and flag wavers. Flag wavers are visible. They are loud. They make announcements. They seek attention. They want everyone to know what they are doing while they are doing it. But foundation builders, they work in trenches. They dig deep. They pour concrete. They lay groundwork that others will build upon for generations. The problem is, we live in a society that celebrates flag wavers and ignores foundation builders. We give attention to those who make noise and overlook those who make progress. We reward those who promise and forget those who deliver. We celebrate those who announce and ignore those who accomplish. But here is what I want you to understand. Every great achievement in human history was built on invisible labor. The skyscrapers you admire were built by workers whose names you will never know. The technology you use daily was created by programmers working in cubicles at 3 in the morning. The medicines that save lives were developed by researchers who spent decades in laboratories with no guarantee of success. This invisible labor is what separates real achievers from professional talkers. Real achievers understand that the most important work happens when nobody is watching. They know that character is built in private and reputation is built in public. They understand that the foundation must be solid before the structure can be tall. Why do the loudest voices often produce the least results? Because talking and working require different types of energy. When you spend your energy talking about what you are going to do, you have less energy available for actually doing it. When you invest your time in explaining your plans, the real ones have learned to operate in the shadows not because they are shy, but because they are strategic. They understand that attention is a limited resource, and they would rather spend it on results than on recognition. They have discovered that the marketplace rewards performance, not promises. This requires a special kind of discipline, the discipline of delayed gratification. Most people want immediate feedback for their efforts. They want applause for their attempts. They want recognition for their intentions. But the real ones are willing to work for years without external validation because they understand that internal satisfaction comes from progress, not praise. This discipline is what allows them to stay focused when others get distracted. While others are checking social media for likes and comments, they are checking their progress toward their goals. While others are seeking validation from people who are not even pursuing similar objectives, they are seeking improvement in their own performance. The foundation builders among us are not trying to impress anyone with their efforts. They are not working for applause or recognition or fame. They are working because they understand that someone must do the work. They are working because they know that results require labor. They are working because they have committed to being part of the solution rather than part of the conversation. And here is the beautiful truth. While the flag wavers are busy waving flags, the foundation builders are busy building the future. There was a man named David who worked as a janitor at a large corporate office building in downtown Atlanta. Every night, while executives slept in their suburban homes and managers relaxed with their families, David walked those empty corridors with his cleaning cart. He mopped floors that would be dirty again tomorrow. He emptied trash cans that would be full again by noon. He cleaned windows that would show fingerprints within hours. Most people would have seen David's job as insignificant, temporary, a stepping stone to something better. But David saw something different. He saw opportunity in those empty hallways. He saw education in those abandoned offices. He saw potential in those quiet hours when the building belonged to him alone. While David cleaned, he listened. He listened to the conversations that executives had during late night conference calls. He listened to the challenges they discussed He listened to the problems they could not solve. He paid attention to the language they used, the strategies they debated, the opportunities they mentioned. But David did not just listen. He studied. When he cleaned the offices, he noticed the books on their shelves. He read the business journals left on their desks. He studied the charts and graphs posted on their walls. He learned about their industry, their competitors, their market challenges. David spent his break times in the building's library, reading everything he could find about business, management, and leadership. He used his lunch money to buy business books from used bookstores. He watched online lectures during his commute. He transformed his commute time, his break time, his weekend time into learning time. For 3 years, David worked and studied in silence. He never told anyone about his business education. He never announced his growing knowledge. He never sought recognition for his efforts. He simply worked his night shift and educated himself during every available moment. Then, one night, David overheard a conversation that changed everything. The company was struggling with a logistics problem that was costing them millions of dollars. Shipments were delayed. Customers were angry. The management team had hired expensive consultants who could not solve the problem. David had an idea, not just an idea, but a complete solution. He had observed the problem from his unique perspective as someone who worked in the building during off hours. He had studied similar challenges in his reading. He had connected dots that the executives and consultants had missed. But here is what made David different from most people. He did not just have an idea. He developed a complete proposal. He researched the costs. He calculated the savings. He identified the implementation steps. He prepared a presentation that was more thorough than anything the expensive consultants had produced. David requested a meeting with the operations manager, not to complain about his job, not to ask for a promotion, but to present his solution to the logistics problem. That meeting changed his life forever. The operations manager was amazed, not just by David's solution, but by his preparation. Not just by his knowledge, but by his initiative. Not just by his idea, but by his ability to execute it. Within 6 months, David was promoted to operations analyst. Within 2 years, he was a manager. Within 5 years, he was running his own logistics consulting company. But here is the most important part of David's story. His transformation did not happen during those meetings with executives. It happened during those quiet nights when he chose to study instead of rest. It happened during those lunch breaks when he chose to read instead of socialize. It happened during those weekends when he chose to learn instead of relax. David understood something that most people never learn. Transformation happens in private long before it is recognized in public. Success is not an event, it is a process. It is not a destination, it is a journey of daily decisions to work when others rest, to learn when others entertain themselves, to prepare when others procrastinate. This is how you become a silent force. You stop talking about what you are going to do and start doing what you have talked about. You stop explaining your plans and start executing them. You stop seeking permission and start taking responsibility. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. The transformation from talker to doer requires practical steps. First, you must identify one area where you've been talking but not working. Maybe it is your health. Maybe it is your education. Maybe it is your business idea. Maybe it is your relationship with your family. Whatever it is, stop talking about it and start working on it. Second, you must create accountability systems that measure action, not intention. Do not measure how much you know about fitness. Measure how many days you exercise. Do not measure how many business books you read. Measure how many business principles you implement. Do not measure how much you talk about your goals. Measure how much progress you make toward them. Third, you must protect your energy from people who want to discuss your progress more than they want to see your results. There are people who will drain your enthusiasm with their questions. There are people who will discourage your efforts with their doubts. There are people who will distract you from your work with their conversations. You must learn to work around these people, not with them. Fourth, you must develop the discipline to work when you do not feel like working. Feelings are temporary. Motivation comes and goes. Enthusiasm rises and falls. But discipline is consistent. Discipline works when motivation fails. Discipline shows up when enthusiasm disappears. Discipline shows up when enthusiasm. Finally, you must understand that your legacy will not be measured by what you said you would do, but by what you actually did. History remembers builders, not talkers. The future is shaped by workers, not wishes. Your impact on the world will be determined by your actions, not your announcements. Silent achievers among us are not trying to prove anything to anyone. They are not working for recognition or applause or fame. They are working because they understand that someone must do the work. They are working because they know that results require labor. They are working because they have committed to being part of the solution rather than part of the conversation. Your time of talking is over. Your season of working has begun. Stop explaining what you are going to do and start doing what you have been explaining. Stop planning to plan and start planning to work. Stop getting ready to get ready and start getting ready to produce results. The real ones do not talk about their work talks about them. And from this moment forward, that is exactly who you are going to become. A silent force, a quiet achiever, a person whose actions speak louder than words, and whose results create more noise than promises. The world is waiting for your work, not your words. Start working today. Stop explaining tomorrow. Your future depends on it.